Hello, algebra class. Today's lesson is about finding the equation of a line of best fit. We looked at sketching a line of best fit, making predictions with a line of best fit, what a line of best fit should look like on a scatter plot. So now we're actually going to find the equation for that line of best fit and use it to make some predictions. This is kind of a process that you can use to find that line of best fit along with some tips and tricks. But basically, in order to make a line, you need 2 points. So the very first thing, find 2 points. And the biggest tip that I can give you for this one is try to make sure that one of the points that you use is actually the y-intercept. Because if we're trying to make a line, or the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, remember the y equals mx plus b, b is the y-intercept. So if we automatically use one of our points that is the y-intercept, that eliminates one of the steps that we have to take later. The second thing is we need the slope for a slope-intercept. And it is so much easier to find the slope if you can use integer coordinates. All right, so both you want your y-intercept and your second point to have integer coordinates to make it easier for the adding and subtracting or even the counting if you're just going to use rise and run on a graph. So find 2 points because it takes 2 points to make a line. And then from those 2 points, you can get the y-intercept and the slope. And basically, the first thing you do in y equals mx plus b is find the m. So once you have those 2 points, use those 2 points to find the slope. And like I said, you can use the equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or you can simply just count the rise over run, or just do the simple subtraction. Once you have the slope, you have your equation in slope-intercept form as long as you remembered to make one of your points the y-intercept. If you didn't do that, then you're going to have to go ahead and use the point-slope form for the equation. So y minus y1 equals m. I ran out of room. Let me try this again. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And you would substitute whatever your slope you got in for m and pick one of the points that you used for your x1, y1 and just go ahead and simplify that so you have your equation in slope-intercept form. But like I said, if you use the y-intercept, all you really need to do is substitute your m and your b into y equals mx plus b. And then you can use that to make predictions. And before you use your line to make predictions, what you really want to do is verify it to make sure that it matches your graph. So, and we're going to go through an example, but if you have a line of best fit like this, and you use it to make an equation, but you get a point down here that's not on your line of best fit or somewhere close to your line of best fit, you did something wrong. You want to go back and check your work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the problems that you're going to see in ALEKS. I'm going to run through maybe 2 or 3 of them and show how this process works in action. Here we have our first question, the scatter plot showing the time spent texting X versus the time spent exercising Y by 24 students. And once again, they want us to approximate an equation of the line of best fit, and they give us a graphing tool. So I think the best thing to do here is let's use these graphing tools. As mentioned, we want to try to make one of the points the y-intercept, and we can adjust this later if we need to. And then another point, we want to try to make it an integer. And so what I have here, and I can move this line around if I want to, you know, up or down, but I really think this is a pretty decent line of best fit. And as mentioned, it doesn't have to be exact, it doesn't have to be perfect. To have a perfect line of best fit, they use all kinds of algorithms and a computer program, so just kind of eyeball it here. But what we have, as mentioned, is one of the points is the y-intercept at 9. It's very important to have an integer coordinate. It makes our lives easier. And then the other point is over there at 8, 3, another integer coordinate. So it'll be easy to find the slope and the y-intercept here. The next thing that we need to do is figure out the slope here. And 2 ways. One is rise over run. The other one is using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But this is really simple to go ahead and use rise over run. So going left to right, we're going from 9 down to 3. So our rise is -6. And then we're going from 0 over to 8. So our run is 8. So our slope, -6 over 8, will simplify to -3/4. Now, in this case, they're not letting us use fractions for our equation. So we're going to need to convert this into a decimal. This one's easy enough, -0.75. And as mentioned time and time again, as long as we use y-intercept as one of our points, this equation gets super easy. So it'd just be y equals -0.75x plus 9. All right, so we've got our equation. And then the next part says, let's make a prediction if someone is spending 6 hours. So we simply put 6 in for our x value. And we calculate what this answer is going to be. So -0.75 times 6 plus 9, if you go back and look at our graph, we should, if we're going over to where 6 is, we're going right up here, we should get an answer around here, somewhere between 4 and 5, or about 4.5. So let's see how close this is actually going to come here. So -0.75 times 6 is -4.5 plus 9 gives us gives us positive 4.5 hours, which matches up with the graph just like we talked about. Here's our next question. Scatter plot shows the number of years experience X and the hourly pay rate for 23 cashiers in Ohio. And as you can expect, the more you work, the higher your pay rate goes. Now here's another neat little trick. This one's asking to make a prediction for 18 years experience. So what we could do to make our lives really easy is put that first point on 18 years. And then we can put our second point where we think the y-intercept should be. And that looks like a pretty decent line of best fit here. So automatically, we know since we put that point on 18, that we can just go ahead and, let's see, that is the point 1816. So we can go ahead and put 16 in there without really having to do the math once we get the equation. We know in y equals mx plus b, the b is going to be 8. So all we really have to do now is figure out what the slope is going to be. From 8 up to 16, we're going up 8, and we're going over, 8, and we're going over 18. So I'm just going to take my calculator real quick. 8 divided by 18 gives us 0.44 repeating. So I'm going to go ahead and estimate this here. 0.44x plus 8 was our y-intercept there. And we can go ahead and hit check. And we got that right. So, like I said, a trick is whatever the prediction part is going to be. Let's go ahead and put our point right there. And then we don't even have to really do the math. Let's go ahead and do the math one more time. This is another one about texting and exercising. So step 1, once again, let's make our line of best fit. Let's put our intercept somewhere close to where we think that line is going to be. And I'm not real happy with where that point is. I can't really estimate that as an integer, but I can move that without really changing the line too much to make it on an integer point. So that's exactly what I did there. And that's going to make our lives so much easier. So let me go ahead and take a screenshot of this So we can go ahead and kind of annotate on here. We'll get rid of this old question that we just did. Let's bring up the one that we were just looking at here. All right, so here's our problem. And we know step number one, let's find the slope. And this time I'm going to look at the points. All right, so I'm just going to look at all kinds of different ways to perform these problems. So we have the point 0.9 and we have the point 8.2. So if I'm going to use our equation for a slope of y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, I'm looking at my y's first. So my 9 and the 2. So I'm going to take 9 minus 2. And then I look at my x's next. Since I used the 9 first, I have to make sure that I use the 0 first. So I'm going to have 0 minus 8. And that's going to give me a slope of 7 over negative 8. And as I mentioned before, Alex is not going to let us use fractions, which I think that's a mistake on their part. They're not going to let us use fractions here, but 7 over negative 8 is negative 0.875. So that's our slope, negative 0.875x, and we all know our y-intercept was 9. Now, I'm going to show you the point slope form for this, so just in case you aren't lucky enough to use the y-intercept, I want to show you how this works. So the point slope form, remember, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y, I'm going to use that point, we had 8.2. So 2 was our y. Our slope we just figured out was negative 0.875. And our 1 with that, or our x with that, was 8. So simplifying that gives us negative 0.875x, and then a negative times a negative is positive, and negative 0.875 times negative 8 is a positive 7. Remember that was 7/8 times 8, so kind of the 8's just cancel out. And when we add this 2 to both sides to get into slope-intercept form, we end up with y equals negative 0.875x plus 9, which just verifies that our y-intercept was 9. Now the last step of that was let's figure out what it is for 4 hours. So let me erase a little bit of this. Our equation was y equals negative 0.8, our equation was y equals negative 0.875x plus 9. And if we're going to go ahead and estimate this for 4 hours, negative 0.875 times 4 is negative 3.5. And add that to 9, we get 5.5. And going back at our graph, if we go to where 4 is for time spent texting and go up to where the graph is, we see that's right at 5.5. So that verifies that the work that we did algebraically matches the line of best fit that we came up with. Your assignment is going to be on Alex. It is called Finding the Equation of a Line of Best Fit. There are only going to be 5 questions, 2 points apiece for a total of 10 points for the assignment. And as always, you can Zoom during our 3rd period class or during any of my office hours simply by clicking on the links in the email that I sent you. Also, you can email me, but Zoom is way easier to get the help that you need during those scheduled times. Good luck.